setting. I've worked with Webster for a number of years, so if you folks do have any questions during the meeting or after the fact, I'm going to have a few documents that I send to Joe that he can distribute to the group. And if we want to have any discussions that go on after that, you can always feel free to get in touch with me, or you can reach out to support@capsim.com, and anybody on my staff should be able to assist you as well. Now, I know in the essence of time, and since we have quite a bit to go over today, I put together a few questions that I assumed most of the group would have. I'll try and go through a majority of these while I've got you today. And I also want to demonstrate how you would do some of these things in your course on CapSim. Right now, I'm logged in on CapSim, and I'm logged into the Webster University parent account. So this is where we set up all of the courses for all of the instructors. And each time we set up a course, we'll send an email to the faculty member teaching the course, reminding them of their user ID and password so you know how to sign in. And then when you sign in, you would just see the course that you are teaching. So in this case, I set up a demo course that we're going to look at today. In this hypothetical course, we have 9 students enrolled in our section. And we're going to go through all of the essentials that we need to do as the faculty member in order for our course to run smoothly. Now, I put together a Word document. I'll send this to Joe at the end of the call, along with a couple other materials that I think will be helpful for you moving forward. But I want to start with, what products are included in my course. If you are teaching Management 5650, it's using our capstone simulation. This is a group simulation exercise, so we'll have the students register for our course. Then, as the professor, we will divide the students up into groups, and then those groups of students will play the simulation against one another, along with possibly some computer teams. It depends how many students we have. But they're going to play the simulation for up to 8 years. Now, I'll get into the simulation more when we look at that PowerPoint, but I want you to know that there's the simulation, and then there's this capstone course bundle that's included. This includes an e-textbook that has some case stories, some mini cases, some supplemental videos. It's a book that was designed to pair with the simulation that the students are going through in the course. So this is available to you. You can use the resources that are included with the book as you see fit. Anything to help amplify the student learning, we are all in favor for. Now, what do we need to happen in order for my course to run smoothly? Well, first thing we need is students. It tends to speed the process along if we give the students some instructions they can follow to get registered for our course. I've included some instructions that you'll be able to copy and paste and email to your students to help, streamline that process. The only thing to make note of is that your course on CapSim has this industry ID. It's a C number. In this case, this demo course was C113597. If you're teaching a course on CapSim, you'll have a unique course ID. You just want to be sure to update those instructions to include your industry ID so we make sure the students register for our course and not somebody else at Webster. Now, if the students do end up in the wrong course, it's not the end of the world. We can still move them from our end, but getting the students into the course is step one, and I've included some instructions here that you'll be able to send the students to streamline that process. Once the students are in the course, we do need to put the students into teams. We'll need to input a schedule. This schedule will consist of a couple practice rounds. Usually it's 1 or 2. And then after the practice rounds have been completed, we need to restart the game into competition mode. And then the students will play, I usually call it the real simulation, the one that counts for the remainder of the course. So in a sort of typical course, we have 1 or 2 practice rounds. We schedule a restart when the practice rounds are over to open up the competition, and then the students play through competition. So just a quick footnote, fundamentally there is no difference between the practice rounds and competition rounds. It's the exact same simulation. It's just that one is practice, so the students can kind of get their feet wet. They can see some cause and effect before we put them together in group, or I'm sorry, before we flip the switch to competition, and then the results will impact their grade more than they would in practice. I hope that makes sense. Now, I'll walk you through an example of how to put the students onto teams in a moment. We'll also look at the schedule, how to put in the deadlines, and how to schedule your restart. Once those things have happened, so the course was created for you. Pardon me. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm just going to apologize in advance for any coughing. Once your course has been created for you, we need students. We need to put them in teams. We need a schedule. Once those things have happened, the course will essentially run itself, at least from an administrative standpoint. Your biggest responsibility at that point is going to be to give feedback to the students along the way. When we meet again on Friday, I'm going to spend a lot more time looking at the results and sort of walking you through how would I debrief the simulation results to my students. But today we're going to focus on how do I make sure my course runs smoothly, and any other Q&A that you may have. I've included things like what are CapSim support hours, can my students get help if they need it, how do we grade the simulation, all that sort of stuff will be included in this document. But for now, let's take a look at putting students onto teams. So in this demo course, I set it up in the sort of most common format, which is 4 human teams, 2 computer teams. Realize that I don't always know how many students you have in your course when we do that initial setup. That usually happens several weeks before your course begins. So if we need to make any adjustments, for example, a good team size is usually 3 to 6 students per team. If I only have 9 students, I would probably do 3 teams of 3, or I might do 1 team of 5 and 1 team of 4. In that scenario, I don't need all 4 participant teams, in which case you could send an email to me, you can send an email to support@capsim.com, and we can easily change that for you. We're going to do 3 teams of 3 right now, so I'm going to show you how to change that team to computer controlled, this extra participant that we have. But remember, if you ever need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. We really do pride ourselves on our customer service here. So if I have an extra team, it does require restarting the sim to change that. So I'm going to go to Manage Industry, Manual Restart.
Eric?
And because our simulation hasn't started yet.
Eric?
Yeah.
I just had sorry to interrupt you. So just to be sure, some of the participants at this WebEx may not have the basic information about how to even set up a CapSim. They may not even have an account, or if they have an account, they have not actually set up a course. Can you just walk through that quickly before we go into the
Sure. So every Webster instructor is set up under this parent account for Webster University. So all of the course setups, these are actually going to happen on CapSim's end. So I have a contact at Webster that sends me a course list every semester, and when I get the list, there's often more courses on that list than actually get delivered. So you might see a few extra sections here that end up getting combined into one course. But basically what we do is we get a list of courses, we set them all up, and if the professor does not have an account already, we set them up as an associate professor underneath the Webster account. So if I created a professor account for you, you would receive an email that says, welcome to CapSim, this is your user ID. There'll be a link there to establish your password on that account. But I'm also going to send an email when all of these courses are created that says, pardon me, that says, hello, Professor Roberts. This is a quick note to let you know that your CapSim course has been created. The industry ID is, one of these C numbers, whichever one was assigned to you. Here's how to get signed in on CapSim. So when you are teaching one of these courses, you don't need to worry about setting up the course. I'm actually going to do that for you. What I'm trying to make clear is that when I set up the course, I use kind of a boilerplate setup where I'll use 4 human teams and 2 computer teams. Now that doesn't always align with how many students you have in the class. If I have 20 students or 21, like Professor O'Bannon, I might need to open up a 5th team, or in that case, we might be able to make it work with 4. This might make more sense if we look at a course that has like 7 students. I always recommend having at least 3 students on a team. Just in case somebody drops, you always want to have at least 2 students working together to make those decisions. So if we did need to make an adjustment to the teams, it's as easy as sending an email to me or support@capsim.com. Just let us know the adjustment that you need to be made, and we'll take care of it. Alternatively, this is something the faculty can do themselves via manual restart. In this case, the simulation hasn't even started. I know that I don't have enough students to fill up those 4 teams, so I'm just going to reset the sim in practice mode. Type in my little industry ID where it wants me to do that here. So I picked practice. When you get to the second step, there's literally a drop down next to all of your companies. If we need to make any adjustments, in this case, I need a 3rd computer team since I don't have any students for Team Digby. This is a quick and easy change. Again, either we can do it for you or what we just saw in the recording here, that's how you would do it yourself. So when you're teaching a CapSim section, the course is already created. I can show you how it's created, but I don't see any benefit. We'll send you instructions as far as how to log in and access your course. If you don't have an account, you'll receive an automated email that asks you to set your password as well. And then once you go to capsim.com, when you sign in, you would see this professor page. It would just have a whole lot less courses on there because it's just going to be the courses that you were teaching. I hope that's clear to everybody. So at this point, I've been given a course. In this hypothetical, I've already emailed those instructions to get registered to my students. I would have updated this piece right here with my C number, that industry ID, given it to the students. They got registered, and then once they're registered, now I can assign them to their teams. That's also the optimal time to make any adjustments to the number of teams if we need to do so. So let's look at how we put the students onto their teams. Currently, everybody is unassigned. We're going to put 3 students apiece on Andrews, Baldwin, and Chester. The last 3 companies, these are all going to be computer controlled. So to assign teams, we go to Manage Industry, and then we click on Team Assignment.
Eric, one other comment. Go ahead, Doug.
In the simulation, it always seems to work best if you have 6 teams playing at the same time, even if most of those teams are computer teams. So I just wanted to let the faculty know you always want to set it up for 6 teams because that's how the manual is set up, right? For like demand and growth and those kind of things. It's set up that way. So even if you only have 3 teams, always make 3 additional computer teams, basically, to get you to 6.
I appreciate you mentioning that. There's also the comparability component to this. In order for our class to be comparable with everybody else's from around the globe, we have to have 6 companies. So, really, it's just bragging rights. But I know if I'm teaching a section and I have a team that's doing really well, I like telling them that they're on the top 10 report, which, again, it's just bragging rights. But knowing that our team performed well enough to be listed up there with, schools halfway around the globe or Ivy League institutions, that students tend to get a real kick out of it. So to maintain that comparability, we got to keep 6 teams, even if a few need to be computer controlled. Plus, like Doug was saying, it's the materials themselves tend to be written for 6 teams, since that's what I'd say 99% of instructors use. So it tends to be a little less confusing for students when what they're seeing in the book aligns with what they're seeing on CapSim. Now, getting back to the team assignment, again, I went to Manage Industry to assign my teams. I believe there's also an option on the dashboard here. You can click on Team Assignment if that's easier. Just click Team Assignment, brings you to the same exact page, okay? So either left menu or from your dashboard. The trickiest thing to remember here is we have to click the little check boxes on the left. These tell the system who we are trying to assign. So from here, I'm just going to put the first 3 on Team A, the next 3 are going on Team B, and the last 3 are going to go on Team C. We can assign the whole class all at once, and once we've hit assign, we could still move students around if we needed to. If we got a late enrollment, they'd show up as unassigned above this group, but if for some reason we had to shuffle the students around, you can still, move a student from Andrews to Baldwin or whatever you need to do after the fact. All right, so we've looked at how to get the students enrolled, or at least I showed you the instructions for this. This would basically direct students to the main website and tells them kind of click by click exactly what to do to end up in your course. Once we've got students and they're on teams, the only thing we're really missing is a schedule. Again, there's a button to do this on your dashboard where you can change the schedule. Or if I go to Manage Course, Schedule Rounds, it'll bring me to the exact same page. So again, either from the dashboard or the left menu, there's usually a couple ways to do these important tasks. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see there is a top half of this page for the practice rounds, and there's a bottom half of this page for competition. Now, currently, this is set on Central Standard Time. I know that Webster delivers courses around the globe, so if you do need to change your time zone, just as a heads up, it's under Administration. Manage Course Administration. You just pick your country and region, and the time zone will be set accordingly when you're doing your schedule. So in a typical course, we're going to have probably 1 or 2 practice rounds, and then usually 6 to 8 competition. I always advocate for as many rounds as we have time for. Since it is a growing market, the students tend to make a little more profit every round you go forward, and the later I end the simulation, the more likely it is that the student team is ending on a high note. So just as a quick example, let's say our course started today. I'd probably give the students a few days to get through the pre-work. There are some getting started materials that we ask students to review before they dive in and start making decisions. So let's say, this week was week 1. We let the students get familiar with everything, review those getting started materials. At the start of week 2, we're going to begin the simulation. And let's say we have that first round due Sunday, October 27th, and I'm going to put the deadline for 11 p.m. This is when round 1 would close. We don't technically need to put in a start date here. If we do put in a start time for round 1, we just want to make sure it's sometime in the past. We don't want to inadvertently lock our students out of the simulation. So I do want to make clear there is one start date on this schedule. That's at the very top. Everything underneath this is when we want each round to close. So personally, if I do put a date here, it's usually like the start date of the course. Let's say it was this past Sunday. Our first practice round will process in 2 weeks. Let's say we do a second round after that. You can see we just click the little calendar, pick the day, pick the time, and then when we're finished inputting our dates and times, we just click the button on bottom that says click here to update course, and that's what sort of makes everything official, right? Now we could come back here and make any edits that we need to, but usually this is a set it and forget it situation where once the deadlines are in, you don't typically need to revisit the schedule. If you're wondering what this delay student access to results means, usually we leave those zeroed out. There are some instructors that will process the round in class, and then to make sure that their students have, that you have their undivided attention, they'll lock the results for an hour or 20 minutes, however long they want to debrief the round results. 98% of the time, there's no need for a delay. In my example, we're processing the round Sunday night. I don't see a reason to delay student access to the following round, so I'm just going to leave those zeroed out. Now, I know that my last practice round was November 3rd in this example, so I'm going to put the start time for competition to November 4th, and for now, I'm going to put it at 8 a.m. We'll plug in just a couple more deadlines, just so you see kind of how the finished product might look. In this case, we're just going to do every Sunday. 1 round per week tends to be a nice manageable pace for both the students and faculty. If I did need to increase the pace, so let's say we need to do 2 rounds in the final week. I do recommend doing that at the end of the course. Like anything else, the more time students spend on CapSim, the less time it will take them to make their decisions. They start to learn the software, they start to learn where to find the information they need in their reports, and I'd say, well, that first practice round might take students 2 to 3 hours in some cases. The last competition round might only take them 30 minutes. So if we do need to accelerate the schedule, I'd always do so towards the end. So in this example, let's say we need 2 rounds in the last week. Instead of every Sunday, at this point I'll do Thursday evening and then Sunday evening. And at this point, let's say the course is wrapped up. There is a shortcut to put in the times. If they're all going to be this, go ahead, Joe.
I just wanted to say, it's Doug speaking, Eric. I just wanted to say to the instructors that for weeks 7 and 8, I typically do 2 rounds of capstone. That's to get me up to 7 complete rounds or possibly 8 complete rounds. For the reasons that Eric said, the more that they do it, the more they understand it. So those later rounds, you can double up and it's not too onerous for the students.
So Doug's schedule might look a little more like this, where it was every Sunday until, so it's all Sunday deadlines until we got to that last week. Then we did Thursday, Sunday, and then to make it stick, we click the button that says click here to update course. Now the schedule is in place. Now I do want to pause here because we're not technically done with the schedule. There's one more thing we need to do, and that is schedule our restart to end practice and start competition. Now, when we do this, we'll be wiping the slate clean, essentially. So the balanced scorecard results from practice would get wiped. Any debrief reports, like the scorecard or the analyst report, they'll get wiped clean to start tracking the current simulation. Now, we will still have our Capstone Courier, which is like our annual newspaper that shows us what's happening within the sim, the company performance for each team. We'll have that after the restart, but a vast majority of the debrief information, that's going to get wiped clean to start tracking competition. So if you do need anything for grading purposes when practice is finished, just make sure you give yourself enough time to compile that information before you restart the game. Now, scheduling the restart, it is just like scheduling a deadline. There's a link to do this on the schedule page. It's kind of hard to see. I've been asking our developers to change that background color to make it a little more prominent. But, anyway, we can either click on this link to schedule an auto restart, or we'll go to Manage Course, Schedule Restart, and it brings us to the same exact page, okay? From here, I just pick that I want to start in competition mode. In our example, practice was done on Sunday, November 3rd. I'm going to open up the competition rounds on Monday morning, November 4th. And there's only a couple times I can pick from here, but I'm going to pick 8 a.m. on November 4th, and then I'm going to schedule my restart. Now, just to verify that everything went well, I should see a reminder on my dashboard that I have an auto restart scheduled, and it will remind me of the time that's scheduled. On my schedule, I want to make sure that I've got all the deadlines in place that I want, and that you know, my start time for competition is the same as the restart time. So in this case, I wasn't sure if it was going to be 8 a.m. I got lucky on that front, but this doesn't look like it needs to be edited. I would say the schedule is good to go at this point. So just to recap, our course was created by CapSim. I got an email from either me or somebody on my staff explaining how to sign into my course so that I could do these tasks that we're going over. I sent my students some registration instructions. They got registered, and once they were registered, I was able to put them onto their teams. One of the questions I get quite frequently is I'm trying to do the team assignments, but I don't see my students. We do need the students to enroll for the course before we can allocate them to their teams. So usually first thing I do, email out those registration instructions as soon as I know that C number associated with my course. The students can begin to enroll, and then, you know, when I'm ready, I can put them onto their teams. Now I want to quickly show you something on the student side of the website, which is this getting started area. The getting started section is what I would call the pre-work for the sim. There's a little intro video that explains what they're doing. There's a rehearsal tutorial. This is like a coached practice round. It's, I wish I didn't say practice round. This is different than the practice rounds. This is a tutorial. So there's a coach built into this. It's kind of a scripted exercise. So students have instructions and they have videos they can watch over here on the left. There's also this coach that's kind of built in up here in the top right. If I hit start, these pop-ups will walk me through the entire tutorial, and it will inform me as a student of the important decisions that I need to make each year. So how would I revise a product in R&D? How would I market my product in marketing? How do I borrow money in finance? It's going to kind of go through each department and really walk them through the essentials. There is a quiz that they'll be asked to complete at the end of this rehearsal round, but the decisions are provided for them. If they read the script, the quiz should be very easy. And then once you've done the quiz and you've saved your decisions, so they'd go to File, Update Decisions. Once they've done both, they'd be able to advance the rehearsal to the next round. I wanted to make it clear that students can keep going if they want to get some more practice. We let the rehearsal go for up to 4 rounds. So only the first round is scripted, where we're going to tell them what to do. But once they get to round 2, 3, 4, I mean, this is, it's not exactly the same as the simulation. It's a bit of an easier environment. The computer teams are really dumbed down in the rehearsal, but you can still get in there and practice all the same decisions that we'd be making in the actual sim. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So the rehearsal, I think this is the most important of the pre-work exercises. It gets us into the simulation. It gets us making decisions as a student. And it tells us what we should be thinking about when we're making these decisions, or what we should be looking at in our reports as we're making these decisions. So that was just a quick footnote on the rehearsal. There is one other getting started activity called the situation analysis. This is how it sounds. Let's see. Let me enable Flash here so you can see the graphic. But you're analyzing the situation you're taking over. So you're seeing how the markets kind of spread apart over the 8 years, or in this case, we can look at the end of year 7. So I'll get into this more when we walk through the PowerPoint briefly, but what we're going to do as students, we're going to calculate what the customer wants from our product in terms of an ideal position year over year. If I get the first round correct, so round 0 would come directly from your reports. We explain to students how to do the calculation. If you answered round 0 and round 1 correct, the rest of the rounds will fill in automatically. This makes for a really quick and easy reference for students down the road.
So we are pausing for questions at this time.
From teachers.
From instructors. Okay, I don't see anybody with any, oh. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, would you please refresh my memory as to when the rehearsal is applicable?
So I would say the first week, when we ask the students to familiarize themselves with the simulation, what I'm hoping they do is I hope they go to the guide and they read the PDF guide. This is about 25 pages. It's going to be one of those materials I send to Joe to pass along to everybody in this group. But it's a nice intro to the simulation. The online guide goes into much more detail. So if students are trying to learn more about the sim, I like to say if it's in the simulation, it's in the online guide. So a good question for students, especially if they're asking you really basic questions, is did you look in the online guide? I promise if it's in the sim, it's in there. Now, after they've read a little bit about their company, now's kind of the perfect time to do the rehearsal, where they're actually going to go into those departments that they just read about, and they're going to see, you know, how do I update a product in R&D? How would I invent a new product? How would I market my product? So it's really going to take them department by department and help get them prepared for when they're on their own, which is usually the very next week, right? We put them into their teams. Now, as a group, they start to make these decisions together. And as instructors, we will give them feedback after that first practice round. So, you know, week one, usually that's just the students getting up the learning curve, completing the rehearsal, doing that situation analysis, watching the intro lesson and reading the book. Week two, we put them in teams, we tell them to make some decisions, and then at the end of week two, that's when we would debrief that first practice round result. Does that make sense?
Well, what I'm struggling with here is the difference between practice rounds and the rehearsal.
Okay, so the rehearsal has a script. It's going to tell you exactly what to type in. For the record, there's only 3 companies in the rehearsal. You know, students are on team A, and then there's these 2 computer teams that they're playing against. So the rehearsal itself is, it's like a scripted, practice round. I just hate saying practice round because when we talk about the tutorial, we're talking about the rehearsal. The practice and competition rounds, those are the actual simulation. So that's when the students are making all the decisions without a script.
Rehearsal comes first?
Correct.
So Bill, another way to think about it is rehearsal is just for each individual student, familiarize him or herself with how the sim works. So the practice round is when they do it as a team. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
That's helpful.
Setting them up to be on the team.
Yeah, rehearsal is pre-team assignment or before they actually even do the practice as a team.
Right.
Yeah.
So a good way to put it would be individual tutorial or team practice, team competition.
Okay, other questions? So quiet means everybody got everything or they just have no clue. Either one.
Now,
I hope it's
I can't see the chat box if there is one. If there are any questions in chat, if you can just tell me what they are, I can address them.
How do we invent? Okay, that was a question that I think. How do we invent computer teams to get to 6 teams?
Oh, easy. Team assignment.
Okay, so when I set up your course, kind of the boilerplate template I use is 4 human teams and 2 computer teams. You know, that could work. It depends on how many students you have in the class. That tends to be the most common setup I see at Webster. That's why I'm using 4 and 2. If we needed less participant teams or we need more, because we have a big class this term, it's an easy adjustment to make. Easiest would probably be just send me an email or email support and say, you know, my course industry ID, you know, C113597. My course on CapSim has 4 participant teams and I need 3. Can you switch Digby to a computer? And it takes us like 5 seconds to make that change.
So the question was from David. So one way to think about this is if you have 10 students in your class, as an example, you can put 3, 3, and 4 in 3 teams, and the other teams can be computerized, or the computer is the other three teams. Yeah, but Doug's recommendation and the recommendation overall is, and make sure that you have 6 teams so that the rounds will be comparable to what everyone else is doing across the network of CapSim. So one of the reasons why we are using the Capstone and the CompXM is to get external benchmarks how our students are doing compared to students at other universities. So that's another reason why we are asking you to have 6 teams, regardless of how many students are in your class. Make sense? Does that answer your question, David?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, great. So other questions before Eric moves on? Okay, by the way, we are also recording this session, so I'll send out a link. You can watch this, get more. So if you have other questions, you can watch the recording.
Perfect. A quick note on the computer teams. If you're wondering what do those teams do, each computer team follows one of Porter's generic strategies. So which strategy they follow depends on which team is the computer team. Anytime team F is a computer team, they always run this niche differentiation strategy. Or, if Digby's a computer team, they're going to be a broad differentiator. You can usually pick up what the teams are doing pretty quickly, analyzing the results. This isn't something we tell students, but as faculty, it's okay to know each of the computer teams follows one of these generic strategies that we outline at the end of the book. So when students are asking you, what strategy should I do or which strategy is the best, it's up to them. We give them 6 basic strategies at the back of the book. There's literally thousands of different strategies you can employ in the simulation. Did you need something, Joe?
Doug was no. He was just making a comment about the scripted computer teams activities. So.
Yeah, the computer team. People worry about the computer team being omnipotent and all-knowing and perfect. The computer team is not. I set mine typically to average difficulty, and I tell the students I expect them to beat the computer.
Now, don't be alarmed if the computer team is doing well in round 1. They do tend to sort of start off okay and then kind of fade as the students begin to, really optimize their processes within their company.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Other questions?
Okay, the help and support area, I just wanted to take a minute to show it to you. Right now I'm logged in on the student side. They can send us a support ticket from here if students have questions. It's very similar to writing an email. They could also email support@capsim.com, just like the website, and my entire staff watches that inbox. So if students have questions, please tell them to feel free to ask. I'm going to log in on the professor side again. So, quick recap. When we came into this course, we already had some students. That wouldn't be normal. We would need to email our students some instructions. Pardon me, to help them get registered. Once we have students in the course, we need to put them on teams, we need to fill out a schedule, and we need to remember to schedule a restart. So we put in our round deadlines under Managed Course. We also schedule our restart from Managed Course. Once the simulation is underway, the biggest responsibility we have as faculty is getting students feedback on their performance. In the next session, I'll go over in much more detail how to do a debrief of the round results and how that approach kind of changes over time. In that first practice round, I'm going to give more of what I call the 30,000-foot view of what students should be looking for in the reports. So things like, here's where you find what the customer's interested in. Here's how you can calculate how many customers are in this market. And then as time goes on, we'll zoom in a little more each round. We'll look at cash flow problems, inventory buildups, look at product positioning, we'll look for competitive advantage. There's all sorts of things that can pop up during the sim. One other document that I plan on sharing with you are some common pitfalls and discussion topics that you can use with Capstone. So whenever you're reviewing the results and you're wondering what you want to talk about, this can make for a good shortcut as far as what usually happens at this point in the sim. Round 3, for example, it's notorious for being kind of a difficult year for students. Year 3 is when they feel like they've got it all figured out, and then the market might get flooded with new products, inventories get built up, emergency loans get issued, and then when we're talking to the class after that round, we want to make sure it's clear as far as why they ran into some of these problems, how they can correct them moving forward. But it's not always going to play out like that, but this makes for kind of a quick reference as far as what are some things I could talk about this year that weren't the same as last year. So anything I can do to help kind of make your job a little easier, I'm trying to include in these materials. So I plan on sending you that. Again, we'll get into the debriefing more next week. For this week, I wanted to kind of quickly show you the simulation as well. So this introductory PowerPoint, this is the same one that you can download from the website. I'll show you where you can get it, but I'll also send it to Joe along with these other documents. The only slide to update is slide 2. You just want to be sure to put your name, your school name, class and section. I'm going to kind of breeze through this on the assumption that you know why we use business simulations in the classroom. At CapSim, we believe in learning by doing. We've seen the research that supports it by allowing students to actually practice what they've been learning about in theory. This is really what sort of helps tie everything together for the students and have that sort of aha moment. And it's also a lot of fun, and it's also risk-free. So if they happen to run their company into the ground, you and I will all be okay at the end of the day. So let's talk a bit about the industry that they're inheriting. When the students take over this company, the assumption is that there was a monopoly. This monopoly gets broken up into these 6 identical companies that the students are taking over. Now, we name the companies Andrews, Baldwin, Chester, Digby, Erie, Ferris. The easy way to remember that is A, B, C, D, E, and F. Along with that, all of the product names on Team Andrews will start with A, Baldwin B, Chester C, etc. And it's also color-coded in the reports, so it should be pretty easy to tell who is doing what when you're going through the results. Just by looking at the first letter of their product, you know what team they belong to. Now, they all start off with about $100 million in sales. They've got 5 products, 1 in each of the 5 market segments. It is a closed market, so we don't need to worry about anybody else coming in or any companies exiting the market. If a team does go bankrupt, we do bail them out.
They can exit.
Was there a question?
Yeah, Doug got a question.
Eric, they can exit the market though, right?
Oh, you can exit a market segment. It'll never be game over, though. That's what I meant.
Yes.
So regarding their products, you start with 5 products, 1 in each segment. If a team wants to run a niche strategy and maybe move all 5 of their products into, let's say, the two low cost or very price sensitive markets, they can do that. It's really up to them as far as what to do with the strategy, but no matter how wonderful or how poorly they execute that strategy, it'll never be game over. We'll always bail them out with our friendly loan shark that we've affectionately named Big Al. Since we're located out of Chicago, we named him after Al Capone. Big Al will always be there with his checkbook to make sure that you have enough cash to get back to zero so that you don't have to declare bankruptcy. Of course, the loan shark is the highest possible interest rate that you could find. So it's best to avoid Big Al if at all possible. Now, we tell students they're selling sensors in the sim. We chose sensors because they don't really have any preconceptions about what sensors do or what they should do. So they go into the sim with an open mind. But these products we're selling, they're going to go into a variety of applications. We say that our customers are OEMs. Those are original equipment manufacturers that are going to use our sensors for their devices. The 5 market segments are listed here: low end, traditional, high end, performance, and size. Fundamentally, they are all looking for the same things. There's an ideal position for your product within that market. There's an ideal age for your product. There's a range for reliability that they consider acceptable. Let's see, age, positioning, reliability. What am I forgetting? Good Lord. What was that?
Nice.
Price, right? The price range. So each group of customers, fundamentally, they're looking for those same traits: the price range, the positioning, the reliability, where do I position the product. The difference is going to be the level of importance, right? In low end, they're going to be very price sensitive, whereas in high end, they really don't care much about the price as long as it's within that acceptable range. They're much more interested in cutting edge, right? They want brand new, and they want that design to be absolutely cutting edge. So all of that information, it's all spelled out in the reports. I like to tell students this is the one time in your life you get perfect information, right? You know exactly how many customers you have. You know exactly what influences their decision. You know how much the changes you are making would influence your customer. And even with that perfect information, I guarantee they will make mistakes. And that's because there's still uncertainty in this scenario, right? The uncertainty is provided by the other 5 companies. So, we're making decisions for an entire year. We can't react to what our competitors did until it's time to make decisions for the next round. So, all the uncertainty, it's being provided by the groups of students. Even in this perfect world where we know exactly how many customers we have and what's going to influence their decision, we're still not going to be able to, for example, make a perfect forecast because we still don't know what the other companies did, right? So the overarching concept here of the perceptual map, which is how we track the evolution of the industry, is that as time goes on, your customers expect your product to get better. Now, better in this example, in the world of sensors, better means faster and smaller. So these markets, they're all going to be drifting down and to the right. And kind of the rule here is the more high-tech the market is, the faster it's going to move across the map. Now, the time, if people need to run, no problem. This is going a little over what I had intended. But in any case, time goes on, customers expect your products to get better. Each of the 5 segments, I mentioned, they're looking for the same things. At the same time, the level of importance varies from one to the next. The market will grow year over year, so as time goes on, it will get a little easier for teams to make a profit. Quick note on decision making. When they're in the spreadsheet, pardon me, when they're in the spreadsheet, R&D is listed first, then marketing, then production, then finance. The most basic advice you can give the students is also some of the best, and that is start from the top with R&D and work your way down. Every subsequent area requires information from the ones before it. So in order to make well-informed decisions, we really have to make our decisions this way in order to optimize our decisions.
So Eric, it's 2 o'clock. A lot of people are stepping out because there are meetings that...
No worries.
So
that was basically the end of what I wanted to cover anyway. I was going to say, I'll send this PowerPoint along with the other materials I mentioned to Joe. And Joe, you can feel free to pass these along to anybody in the group. And again, Friday, we'll talk more about debriefing. Sorry for going long.
Thank you for doing this. Great. Thanks again. We will see you online on Friday from 1 to 2 p.m.
All right. Talk to you then. Have a good one.